Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we'll have the latest from the live radar. Run for the latest weather warnings as we do have a named storm arriving overnight tonight into tomorrow. Storm Bram is moving in. We've been talking about this for a number of days now. We didn't initially think it would be named before the models backed off a little bit yesterday, but they have trended southwards with those stronger winds, and we have now got pretty widespread amber warnings for wind across northern and western Scotland, and some localised amber warnings for rain across southern Wales and southwest England, those focus points that we've spoken about a lot over the past few videos. Elsewhere, we have got numerous yellow warnings issued, so many areas are going to see some quite severe impacts, but it's those amber warning zones that we're going to concentrate on as they're where we could really see significant issues. We'll have a look at the latest UK view, looking at the precipitation and the temperature over the coming days. Of course, looking at those wind gusts for Storm Bram. 70 to 80 miles per hour could look quite widely across western and northern Scotland. Could even exceed that in the worst spots. We will then briefly have a look at the long range towards the end of the video. No real massive changes today. Still looking reasonably westerly over the next 7 to 10 days, but still some increasing signals for higher pressure to try and ridge in by the end of sort of the runs, around that sort of day 14 time frame. But at this stage, not really doing much other than potentially turning us a little bit drier, maybe frostier. We'll have to wait and see whether that actually can turn into something more significant, maybe northern blocking. Again, it is something we'll have to wait and see. So do remember, if you enjoy the videos, make sure you like and subscribe. Now, if we start on the live radar, you can see it's reasonably dry for most of the moment. A few showers across northern England, northern Wales, a few showers western Scotland, and some more persistent rain driving into southern England. Now, this is the outer bands of Storm Bram, and it will be bringing some really heavy rain overnight tonight into Tuesday morning. Now, we are going to see kind of two sides to this storm. Through Tuesday morning, towards lunchtime, the early afternoon, it's heavy rain. That's the primary issue with this system. And I said it's going to be mainly focused across western parts of England, Wales, and especially southwest England as well, where already the rain is pushing in. And then later on Tuesday, towards Wednesday, the main low, centre of the low, is going to move through further northwards. And there we are going to see some exceptionally strong winds for western and northern Scotland. So it's going to be a long-lasting event, this, but it's going to primarily start out as rain. The winds will pick up as the weather fronts move through, and those winds will continue to pick up even once the rain subsides a bit during Tuesday afternoon, evening into Wednesday. And that's where we could see the peak of the winds. Now, if you look at the temperatures at the moment, so you can see it's reasonably mild out there at the moment. It is going to get even milder over the next 24 hours. Big warm sector in Storm Bram. That's contributing to its intensity and the heavy rain. So, although, yes, it's pretty abysmal with rain, wind and cloud, temperatures are going to be well above average. Could even get towards 15 degrees in some spots. Now, if you have a look at the weather warnings, you can see we have two warnings issued at the moment. A rain warning issued for big parts of Wales, southwest England from 6 p.m. this evening until 2 p.m. tomorrow for heavy rain. Again, we're looking at an inch or two of rainfall. Again, this is medium impact, low likelihood. The same warning we looked at yesterday, so we won't look at this in too much detail. But in a few spots, it's been upgraded tomorrow to that amber status, which we'll look at a bit more detail in a few moments' time. And then a wind warning issued from 10 p.m. this evening until 4 p.m. tomorrow. Again, still going to see some strong winds further westwards and southwards. Not going to be as intense as Scotland, but here still 50 to 60, maybe gusting up to 70 in a few spots. So you can see that here, 40, 50 quite widely, up towards 60 or 70 possible, maybe just above 70 in the worst spots. And then into Tuesday, numerous extra warnings issued. If we focus further southwards, two amber rain warnings, one across southern parts of Wales. It is quite a localised warning towards the Brecon Beacons here, so it's not a large area, but it's from midnight tonight until 10 a.m. tomorrow. So I said the main focus for rain is tonight into Tuesday morning. Later on Tuesday into Wednesday, it is going to be more of a wind event. Here we are going to see 50 to 75 millimetres in only 9 hours, so some really high rainfall rates. Could even see some relief rainfall here with the higher ground, up to 100 millimetres in some spots. Medium impact and medium likelihood. And then we have a very similar warning issued further south and westwards. Again, very similar here. 50 to 75 mils, up towards 100 mils in some spots, and again from midnight until 10 a.m. So it really is those prone spots where we've got a bit of elevation, which will exacerbate the precipitation rate. And of course, these areas have seen a lot of rain over the past few weeks, seeing amber warnings already during the autumn. So it's all of that saturated ground could contribute to even worse impacts into Tuesday. Now, further northwards, a rain warning issued here up towards the Lake District, up towards northern England, and even stretching towards the Peak District. Again, similar time frame tomorrow, but lasting a little bit later till 3 p.m. Again, looking at 20 to 40 millimetres quite widely, maybe up towards 80 millimetres here. Medium impact, but very low likelihood. And then further westwards, wind warning issued for Northern Ireland from 9 a.m. tomorrow until 9 p.m. So you can really see the timings are being pushed back further and further for Storm Bram, as the winds are going to be stronger in the north, but going to arrive a little bit later. Here, 50 to 60, quite widely up towards 70. And then a large wind warning issued that stretches from kind of North Wales through northern England up towards central and eastern Scotland. So a large warning area here. But again, it's pretty typical, 50 to 60 quite widely, up towards 70 miles per hour, medium likelihood, low end of the impact matrix. A rain warning issued across the central belt here. So for large population centres, again, we're looking at maybe 20 to 30 millimetres, which will fall in a very short period of time, 4 to 6 hours, maybe even seeing more than that. So again, could be some flash flooding. And then a widespread wind warning issued for northern and western Scotland. Same warning we had yesterday. Again, 60 to 70 quite widely, up towards 80 in a few spots. And then an amber warning issued, where essentially the winds are going to be the same strength, 70, 80, maybe up towards 90, but it's just the likelihood is that much higher. And it's because the low pressure system that initially was smashing western Scotland on Saturday, it backed off yesterday, and that's why we're hesitant, and probably why the system wasn't named till today, and then it's trended southwards once again. So the yo-yoing effect of this low has meant that we went from thinking, yes, guaranteed amber, to maybe not an amber, maybe not even named, to now today back to amber, and the system being named. So numerous warnings issued. Really the only areas sort of missing out on those warnings, or probably wrong way to phrase that, but getting lucky not seeing any warnings, kind of central, eastern and southeastern England. Even these areas that are just outside of the warning zone still will see significant conditions, and even areas further eastwards where we've got no warnings within 100 miles still are likely to see heavy rain and strong gusty winds. Into Wednesday, we still have those warnings for wind further north, as it's going to linger there. Now, if you look at the latest UKV, you can see the rainfall moving in very quickly overnight tonight. Look at that big wall of rain, really bright colours, especially in those amber warning zones for southwest England and South Wales. The majority of that rain falling in that sort of 6 to 9 hour period into the first 6 or 9 hours of Tuesday, but you can see some back edge rain really pepping up over the higher ground. It's not as widespread, it's not as persistent and consistent all over the place, but it is really intense over the higher ground there into Tuesday morning. You can see rainfall is intense further northwards, and this is where the winds start to pick up during Tuesday lunchtime, really picking up into the afternoon, and as the centre of that low just clears to the north of Scotland on the southern flank through Tuesday afternoon, evening as well, in these convective showers, we are going to see those winds driving in off of the Atlantic. Going to be very strong and disruptive there before it slowly eases into Wednesday. For the rest of Wednesday, still some rain across northern Scotland, still stronger winds, but for most it will be settling down, and for southern areas it actually looks like quite a nice day. Into Thursday, the next band of rain arrives, and initially not too bad further eastwards, but increasingly that rain will push in, and then we see into the latter portion of the week another big low moving through. And we could see another quite intense storm system. We'll look at the wind gusts for this in a few moments' time. And they're looking again 50, 60, maybe even 70. Not quite as intense as the system tomorrow, Storm Bram, but could be just about strong enough. If we even see a little bit of upgrades to the models, potentially of that being named as well. Now, if you look at the wind gusts, you can see not too much troubling tonight. Into the early hours of Tuesday, though, the winds will pick up, maybe 50, 60 in those areas southwards and westwards towards the Irish Sea around lunchtime tomorrow, 70 or 80. And then it will really pick up just across Northern Ireland and Western Scotland through kind of rush hour Tuesday evening, overnight into Wednesday. Winds here peaking around 80 to 90 miles per hour, and you can see why we have that amber warning issued, looking really, really intense. You can see the winds widely are going to be their strongest during Tuesday afternoon, but it's those really intense winds widely across Scotland there and Northern Ireland is through overnight Tuesday into Wednesday. So peaking 90, maybe the odd 95 or even 100 mile per hour gust can't be ruled out across some higher ground. Into the early hours, Wednesday still very gusty, but it should ease very, very slowly throughout the day. Still 60, 70 miles per hour. And then you can see as we head into Thursday, a little bit of a lull. That weather front moves through some gusty winds there, but it's really Friday into Saturday where we see the next system. And look at this, another 60, 70 mile per hour bands moving through. Again, not as intense as Storm Bram at the moment, but could cause issues, and we'll have to keep a very close eye on that system. If we look at the max temperatures, as I said, into Tuesday, it's going to be incredibly mild. Could see 14, 15 degrees, maybe even a 16, as we do see a southwesterly flow and big warm sector within Storm Bram. Into Wednesday, it's a little bit chillier, but still 9 to 12 degrees, so fairly mild. Thursday, a little bit cooler into the morning, but not too bad. Again, 8 to 11 degrees. Into Friday, you can see a cold front sweeps through, so a fresh start into the morning, maybe frosts in the north and west, and by the afternoon, not getting much above, maybe 5 to kind of 8 degrees. So much fresher air mass there, but again, it's not too unusual. It's kind of average for the time of year, to be honest. And then into Saturday, colder starts, but very quickly into the afternoon, temperatures climb up quickly, 10 to 13 degrees. So temperatures a little bit up and down over the coming days, very mild to start the week. Of course, Storm Bram, big warm sector, before it turns slightly colder later on the week, but really it's not deviating too far from average. Of course, though, biggest impacts coming in the next sort of 24 to 48 hours. The strongest winds probably won't actually arrive for around 24 hours after I'm recording this, around sort of rush hour on Tuesday into the evening for Western Scotland. But in the coming hours, we are going to see that very heavy rain arriving in the southwest, and that'll turn widespread into Tuesday morning. And then, of course, those winds really, really picking up through the morning, lasting all afternoon and peaking across Scotland into the evening. So if you have a look at the longer range now, we'll only briefly look at this because I know we concentrate on the shorter range a lot in this video, of course, with Storm Bram with its medium impacts. You can see lots more low pressure systems over the coming days. Again, you can't rule out more storm systems. Again, over the past kind of week or so, we've been talking about a lot of stormy weather, not knowing if we were going to see any named storms. We have now, but it's that sort of general breeding ground for big storm systems. Longer range, again, big lows, but we do see pressure rising to our northwest. You can see up towards Svalbard, up towards the Arctic. Pressure builds, but because the tropospheric polar vortex, or a lobe of tropospheric polar vortex towards northern Canada, is just too strong here, and it means any ridge, you can see this ridge attempting to head northwards and eastwards, and there is a big cold pool actually towards Eastern Europe. So if we did get that ridge going, we could go very cold in time for Christmas, but it's really struggling against the westerly momentum, and you can see the attempts of that ridge northwards, but because of the energy coming out of the north, out of North America, simply just cannot sort of overwhelm that. And instead, the ridge builds in, and it very quickly gets flattened. You can see it attempts to push northwards, but very quickly gets flattened by the energy of the Atlantic. If we look at the GM, again, very similar over the coming days, lots of low pressure systems and outdoor data, and again, signs of ridging to our northeast, but again, nowhere near strong enough to overcome the Atlantic. So it could change, it's not a done deal, but it's not looking terribly positive. The most kind of optimistic scenario for a change at this stage would be high pressure kind of ridging over the top of us, maybe a slight easterly, colder, frostier, maybe the odd wintry shower is possible. That's kind of the most optimistic stage, or I'd say realistic sort of chances of something drier at this stage. Of course, if that blocking really got further northwards, we'd have to see some drastic shifts in the models to see that. But if it did, then yes, we could even get pretty cold just in time for Christmas. It is in that time frame still, day 15 or so, where there is still a lot of uncertainty. And to finish, if we look at the east of the left, it's very similar to the GFS. Lots of attempts to build pressure to our northeast, even as early as next week. But it doesn't have much success, and you can see the lows continue to barrage across the Atlantic. You see kind of a perfect example here. There's ridge heading northwards, but it's not strong enough, and the jet stream does flatten that system, unfortunately. Now, if you do finish having a look at the latest ensembles, you can see it's mild at the moment, turning fresher over the coming days, only really back towards average, or hovering around average into next week, but still looking very unsettled. You can see the lows are further south, and that means more precipitation, whereas southern areas this week, we'll see rain. We're going to see rain from Storm Bram, but it's not going to be anything too intense, maybe 5 to 10 mils, so nothing that would cause major issues, but maybe more next week with more of a southerly tracking jet. Longer range, though, in the days leading up to Christmas, we had to Christmas Eve here, we're actually a couple of degrees below average, and you can see some pretty cold runs are starting to appear here, so no guarantees they'll turn very cold, but definitely a cooling trend there in time for Christmas. As I said, could be fresher, could see some wintry showers. At this stage, though, a major cold spell, something like that, we need to see some real continental shifts in some of those runs to be seeing something like that. But it's possible. You never know. And if you do compare finally to the ECNWF, it's probably very similar, actually. kind of mild at the moment, hovering around average or above average, and then a cooling trend longer term. Not got right to the end of the run, but you can see a cooling trend similar to the GFS, but still most are hovering around average, even by that point. So very similar from both the GFS and the ECMWF today. Could see more similar systems to Storm Bram over the next week or two. So yes, big storm system over the next 24 to 48 hours, but it might not be the last for December. So do be aware of that if you have got travel plans, especially leading up to Christmas. That really is a possibility. But at the moment, it is the very big storm system, Storm Bram. It's not the most intense storm we've ever seen, but it is going to be widespread. And it's got, of course, the dual factor of rain and wind. And it is going to impact a lot of areas, especially across western parts of England, Wales, and Scotland, Northern Ireland, of course. So a lot of big significant impacts, fairly short notice, unfortunately, with this, just because of how the models were a bit volatile over the weekend. So warnings, or major warnings, and the name only came out today. But yeah, hopefully anyone in the line of this storm can take the necessary precautions and do stay safe out there. As again, these sort of named storms, they don't get named for no reason. They do, they do really pack a punch. So please do be wary. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you again for another video soon.